good.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Wendell moved, Widener second. Any comments? All in favor of adoption of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
We have public comments. We've got 5 people that have signed up for public comments. Here's what we're going to do, because each public comment gets 5 minutes each. If you want to elect one person to speak for you, and we'll give you a longer period of time to speak, but if we go individually, if people start saying the same thing, then we're going to cut you off and move on with the meeting. So would you rather have somebody represent you, or does somebody want to talk? And don't be insulted if I cut you off and say we're hearing the same thing, so we'll move on with the meeting.
I think you should hear all of us.
We have heard all of you through email, and
I want you to hear us today.
and I will, but if it starts repeating the same thing, then we will cut you off and we'll start the meeting and the discussion. Because there's no point in going over the same thing over and over again. We want to hear what you have to say, but if it becomes redundant, then we will move on. So, David, you're first to come up.
I'm clear with the agendas. I guess I went right by.
Sir, you can come here, Dave. If you will, state your name and address, so the camera have the minutes.
David Conrad, 100 Emerald Forest Lane. Was there anything else?
No, that's it.
I'm here today as a taxpayer and a citizen of this town, in no other capacity. I've stood before this council recently and told you that when I built my house and moved here in the fall of 2000, I moved to a place of peace and tranquility. This is not the case anymore. This stretch of road in question, and the reason for this call meeting today, was then used mostly by property owners, Ski Beach, for maintenance of their equipment in the Oz Festival that was held once a year in October. The top of the mountain was then more or less a dead end. Now it is a destination. Things have changed. For since my building and moving here 19 years ago, we now have the 5506 bar. We have downhill biking, the internet and media marketing of Oz and the frequent weekend at Oz tours, the major Oz festival now held twice in September with thousands and thousands of attendees, I might add, and then also the opening of Emerald Outback. Now this stretch of road, which is the subject of this meeting today, is used by thousands of vehicles annually instead of hundreds. And yesterday I was told that Oz is considering opening 7 months a year, 7 days a week. It is my humble estimation that this road on the agenda today suffers at least 10 times the traffic volume that existed when I built my home in 2000. And this volume will do nothing but grow exponentially if Oz goes to 7 months, 7 days a year, 7 days a week. I understand that the town of Beech Mountain gets much revenue from these events. 3% of the sales tax goes to the town. Is that right? You don't know?
3% of occupancy tax.
It's
goes.
occupancy
And then
tax from when they
sales.
stay up here, that's, and it
sales
goes
tax.
to the TDA, it doesn't go to the town specifically.
And to that add the benefits for lodging and restaurants. But what about us residents? And I ask this council, what about us that built up there? I moved up there to be in peace and tranquility. In one of the most, and it's the reason every one of you are here. It's a beautiful place. I moved up there to be in peace. So did practically everybody moved up here because of the beauty. I did not move up here to be in the middle of the Myrtle Beach or Pigeon Forge of the North Carolina mountains. And neither did anyone else. They're wet, excuse me. Well,
You have a minute and a half to go, sir.
they can get that stuff together. Yes, it got wet. Thank you. Lodging and restaurants are benefiting from this increased traffic, as are the owners of the Oz operation. But those who invested hard-earned money to build beautiful and expensive homes in what we thought was to be a peaceful, relaxing, quiet setting are not benefiting. In fact, we are suffering. But that coming pearl is not the reason that we're here today. Those homeowners on this stretch of road that is the subject of this called meeting did not build beautiful and expensive homes just to have frontage on what has now basically become a substandard, dusty, ruddy gravel highway. All we ask is what's fair. Do what is right and pave this road. That's my humble request to this council today. That's why I'm here. Do what's right and pave the road. And after you do what's right and pave this road, ponder this. Do you really want this gorgeous and serene mountain to turn into a 10-cent tourist trap? Because that's where you're headed.
Thank you. Susan Wall, please state your name and address for Tamara, our clerk, when you come up there. Thank you.
Okay. Susan Wall, and I too am speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the entity that I'm an officer of. My address is 102 Emerald Forest Lane, Beech Mountain. I'm not going to address what David addressed. Oz is something that is occurring and has been occurring, and that's not what I want to address here. I want to address that we were able to get all of our property owners on the south ridge to agree to pave this road. And it was my understanding, and perhaps I'm incorrect in this because I've not been able to see the paperwork for Foxcrest, it was my understanding after talking to two owners in Foxcrest that they agreed to pay. One of them was Brian Kettler, who I've spoken with twice on the phone, who told me he was for this. He felt it would help him sell his lot. And the other was Landon Thorn, who is out of the country, who told me that he would be glad to help, but he had to wait till he got back in July. So I can't speak for Foxcrest other than Foxcrest may get more traffic than we do on our end up in Emerald Mountain, and that's because of the hiking. So now we have traffic count coming in from the paved portion of North Pinnacle, stopping at the parking at the hiking area, and going off and either hiking or biking from that location. So they're actually, Foxcrest is actually probably getting double. They're getting all the same traffic we do, and part of that traffic indeed are commercial vehicles, and that's a concern of ours. The gravel road, many of us maybe have bought when that was a gravel road, and it was sufficient because there were only like 15 of us using that road, and they were vehicles. But now we have buses, and if you're going to put commercial vehicles that are going to be traveling 20 times, 40 times a day, it's going to create a maintenance nightmare, and the town really, I believe, will save money for the scrapings that it's going to have to do to keep that road maintained for all the commercial traffic. And it's not just the buses. There's delivery trucks that are going up to 5506. There's gravel trucks going up to 5506. All of these things create havoc on that road. And a gravel road is dangerous. When a vehicle that size gets going, if it has to stop, one of our residents who was to be here today, Teresa Huffman, but she has food poisoning, so she sends her apologies, almost lost her dog from a bus that tried to stop and slid. So these are things that happen on gravel roads that won't happen on pavement, and they're no fault of ours. We feel that the city and the town has an obligation, if they're going to permit commercial vehicles to be on that road, the town has an obligation to make that road usable and safe. And it's not safe as a gravel road with those conditions. And I also feel that because we have 100% of our property owners along the ridge that have agreed and made a commitment to this, that the difference can surely be laid off on the commercial. I'm not saying you can get the commercial people to pay for it, that's not what I mean, but because the town has permitted the commercial entities to operate, the town should be picking up more of the expense of the paving than just 50%. It's not our fault. We have 17 total houses in Emerald Mountain. 6 of them are down on that road that have to watch all this traffic go by every day, get dust in their house, whatever. The rest of us have to go up past that. That's all that should be on that road. And the fact that there's more on that road, and I know my time is up, but I do think that there is a greater percentage that the town should be paying because of that. Thank you for listening to my comments.
Mr. Johns? Okay.
I'll be the braver.
Your name and address for our clerk, please.
My name is Mary Johns, and do you want my Beech Mountain address or?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's 107 Oz Circle. We just have a lot up there. We have a lot in Oz Circle that we've been trying to sell for about 5-6 years. We've not been able to sell. We're getting into this because we live in Roan Mountain, where we purchased our home in Roan Mountain. We drive on a gravel road. We purchased our home knowing that it was a gravel road. We go up a gravel road to our driveway. We know the wear and tear that's on our car because of it. We accepted that when we bought. And we never have petitioned anyone to pave that road because this is the way it was when we got it. But here in Beech, this particular lot, we bought with the understanding that there was a summer road that half the year we would not be going over a gravel road at all. Most of the time it would be completely paved. That's been taken away from us, so it really bothers me that now if I was a summer resident, and I assumed that I would be not going over a gravel road with my car because of the road closure there for that summer road, now I'm gonna have this huge place. And I do know what these people are saying about the dust that's created because my neighbor down the road, when everybody goes by his house, he has major dust issues because of all the traffic going by there. So I think that when these people say that the amount of traffic that's coming up to Oz is now causing more of a problem than when the people built. And I just feel like as a town, if you buy under a certain standard and you buy under a certain circumstance, and then that gets changed, I think some sort of compensation should be made to the people. And if you're going to have buses full of passengers that are going up to Oz, I don't think that surcharging each ticket $1 until this project is paid for would be something that would be unreasonable. And it's something that could be dealt with the person who's selling the tickets to Oz. They're making a lot of money. They could add $1 to each ticket. They get enough people up there. We know there's like 10,000. So, eventually the road will get paid for. And I just think that as a community, we have also up in Beech, I don't have to pay property taxes for, obviously for a house, but for a lot, and it's a substantial amount just to have a piece of land up there, and I pay city taxes too, and I basically don't get any value for that. But the people up there have, these homes up there on that area are paying a higher percent, let's face it, they're paying a higher percent, not percent tax, they're paying a higher dollar amount in taxes than a lot of the smaller places that are down here. So that's just my opinion. I just wanted to say that I think that it's unreasonable that the town of Beech is prohibiting or not contributing towards this when a lot of money's coming from that particular development up there, and the rules have changed. We no longer have half the year of having a paved road. And so if you didn't want to drive over a paved road to get to your home, you could have stayed away for that time. But now you are forced to drive over a paved road just to get to your home. And I have a friend who lives down off of Shadrach, and she says, yeah, I've been trying to get my road paved. So I understand why they're not doing it. And I said, yeah, but they didn't rip up your road. They didn't rip up your paved road, and now you're having to drive over a gravel road. You bought knowing that, but we didn't. We bought thinking that we would have a gravel road, a paved road to drive over half the year. So that's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
LD Austin.
My name is LD Austin. My address is 420 Oz Circle. I come to Beech Mountain a few times a year. I've owned that home for 17 years. I thought that was a most beautiful place I'd seen in North Carolina. We were looking for a summer home. The day I saw it, I fell in love with it. I wrote a contract that day. I gave them a $20,000 non-refundable deposit. I intended wholeheartedly to enjoy that spot. As it has turned out, it's anything but. We tolerate these buses running up and down the road. Dust is a horrendous problem. I don't know any of you people. I doubt if any of you live up there. If you did, we wouldn't be here now. You would see what conditions. I stopped one of the buses. I came up, I think it was last week. In the first part, I think it's called Fox Run, I met two buses. I had to stop. I could not see. They were flying. I don't drive a decent vehicle up that road. This is, I have calculated, I have paid close to, I've paid the city close to $100,000 since I've been there. Still don't have any decent water pressure. You have to run around in circles to get wet in the shower. The road in front of my house, I didn't have a tape measure this morning, but I'm about 70 years old. I'd say my steps are pretty decent. It took me 3 steps to get across the road. If you say that's an average of a 3-foot step, which that's pretty good for somebody, that's 9 feet. I've been a long-time developer in North Carolina. I'm retired 9 years ago. I don't know anywhere in the state that you can get away with a 9-foot road. The road, one side you've got a asphalt valley curb, which seems to be doing much better than the other side, which is a big ditch. How in the world, with a 9-foot road, can you let a bar sell liquor across from my house and you didn't even notify me? You people done that. How? I wish somebody would explain that to me. So I tolerate the traffic, from the buses, from the drunks, the music. Like I said, you people probably don't live there. So you don't have to put up with it. Whenever I bought that place up there, I came down here to the city, and I don't remember who I talked to then. And I said, what's the deal with Oz? And they said, it's open 1 weekend a year, and that's it. I said, I can tolerate that. Now, I have people parking in my driveway, parking in front of my house, in my grass. I'm going to just skip around here a little bit.
We've got a minute to go, sir.
Okay. My mailbox has been knocked down so many times, I quit putting them up. The town has gained enormously from the sales revenue that they've gotten from the ski resort and Oz. So I think that you guys are turning a backside to us. You're looking at the income rather than destroying a nice community, which is, in my opinion, like I said, I gave them a deposit today I saw it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sharon Huffman?
Sharon Huffman, 122 Oz Circle. I have a home in Winter Park, Florida, where we live most of the time, but we come up here, love it, love it. I did not know, I'm semi-horrified that Oz is going to be open more. I walked my dog yesterday, and it was between 3 and 4. 6 buses went by me, flying down those roads. I'm just like, what? What is going on here? And the dust. And the holes are getting bigger. Winter Road is full of potholes. I am just really sad that this is going to happen to this place. So I did talk to my husband before I came up, and we feel the taxes are sufficient to pave the road. The city needs to do what cities do, maintain the roads, and not keep asking us for money for it. And if Oz is going to be using the roads, Oz needs to pay as well. And during the spring, I think it was, the ski resort was using the roads with really huge machines. And I realize that's the only way that they could do the lift, but they impacted. So we're the little guy. And I just hope that you hear us, because it's changing up there, and we need roads. We need better roads. And let's do something about the speeding buses. When I went back up in my car, there was a bus in the middle of the road. I couldn't get to my house, and the guy motioned me around, and it was on his property that I had to nip to get my car around. So they're telling me to get off the road and go around. And that's just not good. I'm not going to do that anymore. They need to move. We're there first. This is our home. So anyway, thank you for hearing me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start out with opening this up for discussion. We're not going to do a motion just yet. Let's see where we're at, since we already discussed this at a prior meeting. Does anybody want to be the first one to open the discussion?
Certainly. I want to go back to a couple of points that I heard. First, Mrs. Johns.
The summer road has never been a town road. If my understanding is correct, you lost access to that when you disbanded your HOA. So that's really not an apropos point to what we're discussing here. The other things that I'm hearing, you know, I do not believe that Oz benefits the mountain to the extent that people do. Certainly not financially. It benefits the owners and operators of the property. The negative reviews negatively impact the town, and I believe in the long term it's really going to be very much a negative. My wish would be that we could legislate that out of operation, you know, is the larger issue. I think pointing to the ski resorts operation, those impacts have been 2 summers. I think it's disingenuous to really point it at what they're doing now that they have the lifts back up. You know, the traffic there is not the problem. We know what the problem is. My real concern, you know, as I hear the text, we pave it, we're benefiting the one person or the one entities that should be contributing more. Yeah, we've set aside the 50%. I'm not comfortable changing precedent, but we're close enough that I could probably go. But at the end of the day, who's winning this? You know, and is not improving the road not going to increase that traffic? I mean, I would like to know what we could do to reel that in. I mean, you know, unfortunately, I don't know that it is, but you know.
It's a commercial entity, I don't think we have any
operate,
control
yeah.
over that, so.
Well, you know, we certainly stop every boss for safety, everyone that speeds, things like that. But these are, you know, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Austin, that having grown up on the mountain, no, I don't live up there, but you know, I have, you know, been here since 1974. And, you know, live on a gravel road myself, and, you know, I don't think that makes any difference. We're all aware of what's going up there, and frankly, that's a little insulting.
How many buses do you have on the road?
I'm aware of what's going up there, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't interact while we're discussing.
Yeah. That is, you know, as I've said, yeah. I don't necessarily support changing the policy, but if we're close enough there, we all need to know what we're doing is benefiting the one bad actor in this situation. And I have a hard time swallowing that.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Tim, where do we actually stand on the percentage of people along the gravel area that would be impacted by the fee?
I'll let Preston correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're at 22.5. We have like verbal email communications for another 8,000. We're actually total right now was what's on paper, $18,000 short of the 50% we need to compel to go ahead and assess the people who are not paid.
Is that including the foxcrest people?
That's including the
that
foxcrest.
you know, offered-
I'd have to check the names because I'm not sure about the names. That I wrote them down, so I'm not sure if they're foxcrest people or not. So if you want, Preston, you want to come see those names if there's any on foxcrest?
What are you asking? What is the question?
The
You come
pro-
on up here.
It was said that there's 2 people at foxcrest that apparently have offered to give money. And I'm just wondering if the monies that we've received includes what they've offered to give.
We had some discussions with Foxcrest residents or property owners, and none of them were willing to provide an affidavit for their support. Basically, their position was they didn't want to cast a deciding vote. So we had to put them as no's because they didn't provide that form that we've sent out.
One thing I want to point out too, though, when you get to the 50%, that's to allow us to assess those who say no.
To assess the 100.
But if council may say, well, we're just gonna take the people now because we're so close, we still can't assess those people who said no because we're under the amount. So you'd be paving more than the 50%.
That's like Carl said, if we go through with it, what you're doing is you're benefiting the Lady family for their property.
And surrendering the ability to assess them for their cost.
Right.
So let me make sure I understand this clearly. You can't tax those who aren't willing to pay unless 50% of the funds or
Not the funds.
50% of the cost is.
It's 50% of the
Linear footage
the
ownership.
linear footage ownership of the section to be paved, and 50% of the owners of those properties as well. So you have to have both components in order to do a special assessment for up to 50% of the cost of the paving as to the total ownership of that section of the road.
So for those that have contributed to the 50%, if you can reach that 50% mark, then those that didn't contribute, would they reimburse those that paid more than their fair share?
No, it would be a special assessment as to those that have not already contributed. Essentially, everyone would be subject to the special assessment. Some have voluntarily agreed to pay that special assessment. Others would be assessed in the nature of essentially property taxes for the cost of that special assessment.
But not by the money, by the acceptance to say yes. And the unfortunate thing is that the large piece of property is by the one family who is saying no. So what they're saying is even if they got the 50% in funds, that one family could not be assessed because it's not based on the funds, it's based on the 50% that says, yes, we want to get this paid.
So in one of the emails that I think Tim had sent out, that portion of the road that's in discussion had been graded 18 times, and the cost was around $4,300. And I think you and I exchanged some emails that I think that $4,300 is low. And then you agreed that it's probably somewhere between maybe 6 and 8. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, are there any other roads on Beech Mountain that come close to, that's pretty excessive, 18
Well, I
times.
suppose Robert, the back gate is the only thing that comes close, but it's not even really close either. The Oz Road is the most maintained.
This 18 times, and let's just say that it's $7,000 annually. I think that's more of a conservative figure rather than an estimate. That there's a lot that needs to be done on Beech Mountain, and even though that there may be one family that's kind of roadblocking part of this financially, that we should, I think it would be a good ROI on our part if we went ahead and whatever funds that they're short, if the town would make up the difference, pave the road.
What is the current estimate, Robert, at this time, to pay what we're talking about? 141,000.
And also, we've added 20 in there for contingency, for sewer manholes. The 141 is just the paving cost itself. So there'll be some ancillary cost to that too. So 161 is the total.
161.
My question to the council would be, if we make an exception, are we doing something for unintended consequences? Are we going to have other people, maybe not in the same situation? Let me just say right now, I feel for you folks. I really do. If I lived up there, I would be sitting right over here, not as a council member, but screaming my head off. I understand what you're going through just by going up there and stuff. I wouldn't want to live in that situation. But if we make an exception to the policy that we have, what's going to stop the people from Hawthorne saying, you have club members going up and down our driveway all day long, 5 months, 6 months out of the year. The dust is everywhere. We've heard that from that one road. What happens to us if we make an exception and then we tell somebody else, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. You need to get your 50%. It's just a question to be answered. I don't, if I thought nothing would happen in the future with this, I would say, yep, let's go ahead and do it. Absolutely, it's a no-brainer. But I'm afraid of what happens if we make an exception. And I'm asking council what their feelings on that.
I think you realize we've got several of those next project roads that are at that 40% level that are gonna point at this and say, here's the new precedent. You've changed the rule, and we're gonna be faced with a paving budget that we simply don't have.
It's other taxpayers are gonna end up paying more. Every taxpayer is gonna end up paying more if we end up doing something, and it's just a reality. If people hear of an exception, then they're gonna come and say, well, we've got 40%, so why can't you do our road? And now every taxpayer, their money is gonna be going to pave all these roads. And that would not have been intended to pay. And I understand about the buses going through, but that's a commercial business, it's a public road, and as much as you think that the town has the almighty power to stop that, we really don't. We can't stop. It would be like saying we have to stop business to Fred's because of whatever. It's a public road and they can go. As far as the speeding, we can look into that. The way they drive, we can look into that. But we cannot stop buses from going on a public road.
We didn't ask you to do that today.
I know, I'm just saying that, I'm making sure that everybody understands that, because it is the feeling, how can we let that happen? And that has come out, and we can't stop it. We're not almighty Beech Mountain people where we can say, nope, sorry, you can't do that.
Can you limit them?
No, it's a public road. But, so I understand what the bus is going by. But my concern is if we make it an exception, then I'm afraid it's going to have a snowball effect across the mountain. And I don't know. I'm not saying yes, and I'm not saying no. I'm just posing a question.
I don't dispute what you're saying, and everything you said was valid points. I think the caveat here is that with that road being gravelled and the maintenance 18 times, and you look at the return on the investment, if we went ahead and did this, and you know, these other roads, and you mentioned Hawthorne, these other roads don't have the bus traffic on it that Oz has. And I think that's the difference between if someone wants to argue the point, well, this road has buses on it and this road doesn't. And I think that we need to make it, due to that, we need to make an exception to our policy.
Well,
and pave the road.
I think Hawthorne is a perfect example because we have a lot of people crossing Hawthorne to get to Pine Ridge. So it does have a lot of traffic. In fact, I think a couple of years ago, we had a gentleman ask us to pave Hawthorne. And we turned, the council at that time turned it down. So there is a precedent per se that I believe that people are going to come after us to have their roads done. So the question is, you brought up Winter Road. Winter Road is also a private road.
Yeah, that's not our concern.
It's not our road. It doesn't belong to us.
Who brought that up?
Somebody did. Somebody,
Well, we're not here to argue about that.
No, but I'm just saying.
well, we're just answering
I just
that. Calm down.
mentioned-
We're just
I just
answering
mentioned
what came up.
And again, like Carl said, Summer Road, unfortunately, it belongs to the resort. That's the way they control it. We have nothing to do with it. So if when you bought your homes, if you thought that was going to exist, it really had nothing to do with the town because we had no control over that road. And to be honest with you, the way the road is, you don't want to go by it anyway. It is so dangerous, it's even dangerous to walk, never mind drive. So, you wouldn't want to go there anyway, so. And again, Oz for 7 months a year, it ain't happening. So I wouldn't.
Why not?
I don't think they have the business to
They
do
don't have-
that. I think that's a nasty rumor. I really do. They wouldn't have the business to keep that place going for 7 months out of
I
the year.
hope you're
Would
right.
you allow it?
No,
We can't stop it.
How would we stop it?
we can't
It's a
control it.
commercial business, but the thing is if you think about it, no offense, Jana, but when they started the June thing, they couldn't sell the tickets fast enough. I had people calling me that I can't get tickets to the weekend thing. Can you get me tickets? No, I can't get you tickets to that. This time, it seems like the tickets weren't going as fast. I don't know, I'm just looking by what I see, tickets available, tickets available. I think that has kind of ebbed down a little bit. Now they're opening for two weekends in September. I think that Oz is going to realize that there are a certain amount of people, maybe a fixed amount of people that will enjoy coming to Oz, but I don't see it really growing. And I don't think that they're going to ever have the business to keep that going for 7 months a year. I mean, I just don't. My personal opinion.
Can they be assessed because of the?
Not if, you mean for the road, not if they don't, not if you don't get the 50%. That's what we were just discussing up here. If the lady said yes, then anybody else, that would put you up to the 50%, then everybody, whether they wanted it or not, would end up getting assessed. But with them saying no, they know what they're doing. With them saying no, then, and we go ahead and say, okay, we'll make the exception, they still won't get assessed.
I think one thing else that needs to be addressed that was brought up was there were several references to income to the town. Sales tax is generated, and that has increased because of the operations up at Oz and the resort and so on. That sales tax goes to the state. The state then rebates based on counties back to the county, and the county then distributes back to individual towns based on criteria that they've established. It's not something that we can do anything about. It's a chain reaction of how the money comes back from sales tax. So we can't do anything about that. The other issue has to do with occupancy tax that was referenced. And occupancy tax probably has gone up as a result of the activities in the area. But occupancy tax is collected, and by the state ruling, it goes to the TDA authority. The TDA operates, a lot of people don't seem to understand this, but it operates independent of the town. They have a separate budget. Their budget comes from money received through the occupancy tax, and they determine how that's going to be distributed. The town does not. We can't say, hey, we're doing this, we want X dollars each year. We can't do that, nor have we tried to do that. But I think that needed to be made clear. Go ahead.
No, excuse me.
Please, you're more.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the occupancy, yes, I am. The resort and this operation of the defunct, amusement park should not be considered the thing. Oz does not put heads in beds. I'm in the
Probably
business.
not.
I mean, they're day trippers. They're one and done. Some may stop and have, but the vast majority are not driving the occupancy tax, which the ski resort and the club do. And I return to the fact, I mean, I polled these people, they talk, they all, if they want to stay one night. No one in the business is going to do a one-night rental on a house. More than half are negative reviews. I mean, my genuine hope is that, you continue to bait and switch these folks, that eventually it'll die of its own death. My fear is the negative impact that's going to reflect on Beech Mountain as a whole and where we're going. Again, I wish we had the power to just shut it down. I wish we had the money just to pave your road and all the roads. But to keep referring to the economic benefit of this operation to the town is not accurate. It is benefiting one specific family, one specific group.
Great. I believe we talked about addressing the speeding issue, and I'm sure we can do that via the police department. We can also address the idea, which I don't think we have done anything at this point, about parking on private property, blocking driveways, etc. That can be addressed as well. Those are things that we can do something about.
What would be the annual cost on paving? I mean, not paving. So right now, $4,300 to $6,000, $7,000 is the annual maintenance cost. If it's paved, what would the maintenance cost be?
We'll research it every 2 years. If it holds up well enough, that's going to be a gift. So your cost can only equal out or get worse.
He already said it, sorry.
I mean, you're gonna spend the same amount of money either way you do it. You're just gonna spend it in a longer stretch instead of doing it every year.
Robert, you want to come up? Basically, what's going to happen on the road surface, once it's paved, is going to last 10 to 15 years. Usually at 15 is mandatory paving. So we're looking at about $70,000. If you figure $7,000 a year over 10 years, you're going to have that resurface cost at the end of that time as well.
Which if they got the 50%, we would be doing that anyway. So, I mean, it's,
Pardon me?
if they had gotten their 50%, we'd be doing that anyway. So that's kind of a here and there thing. The only thing I want to, well, not the only thing, because there never is an only thing with me, but this thing about the town is benefiting, and you're looking at us when you're saying that. I don't know how that, and I know that this kind of came up, but it's like you think we're benefiting personally from this in some way. The only way the town might benefit is through the sales tax, if they're buying stuff at Fred's and they're buying food and stuff like that. You're benefiting, taxpayers are benefiting from it, because it adds money into it. We don't even budget for tax money, frankly, because it could go away like that if the county commissioners deem it to be done. So it's money that's sitting there that we can use, but this whole conversation that was the town benefits from this, I would like to hear how do you think the town benefits from this? Like, you know, we're getting rich off of this or something.
Tens of thousands of people are coming up here.
Tens of thousands?
Yes.
A year. They're coming up for a day, maybe one night. They're spending money in restaurants. How do we benefit? How do you benefit from that in your taxes?
The awareness of the beauty of it.
And if half of those people are having a negative experience, the simple reality of marketing, lodging, marketing a destination is that if you come, you have a wonderful time. Best vacation of your life. If we're lucky, you'll genuinely tell one person about it. These people that I talk to that come through realize, you know, hey, I just shelled out $50 to walk through a shell of a thing and rip off, are going to tell everyone who listens. The negative impact of this traffic to the mountain's reputation is much greater than any positive one.
Agreed.
So.
And also, I mean, along with that, the people who are coming up are the people who went there when they were younger, and now they're bringing their kids or their grandkids. We'll tell you, it is going to die down. I really do believe that the numbers are going to go down, because people, it's just the same, they're like the same people. When I worked for 13 and a half years at Fred's, it was the same people coming up. And the kids were that big, dressed as Dorothy, were then this big, rolling their eyes about going to Oz. I mean, it's something that I just don't think it's going to end up sustaining. That's my personal opinion.
The other thing I'd like to mention, if I could mention the other thing that I want to bring up. We know that the cost is approximately $161,000. I told you to move, and then I ignored it. It's approximately $161,000. If we were to make an exception, we cannot do assessments, so there's no incentive for the people that have committed to put money in to even pay it. So really, the 161 would be all.
There might be incentives, because we might do it as, if we did do it, it would be based on the monies that have been promised.
That could be. But
Could I just ask a real quick question? I know you don't interact, but the question is, what if we only paid to the winter road? Then would we not have 51%? Because
would that be sufficient?
I'm sorry?
Would that be sufficient?
Well, it would certainly help the owners in Emerald Mountain.
There's somebody thinking out of the box. Did you hear
I
that?
didn't hear.
What if we only, if we only paved to the winter road, they'd have the 50%?
I still don't think they'll have the 50% because the Lotties aren't paying their part.
Up
Because
to
that-
Wait a minute.
Yes, we
They're within 3 feet of each other, and it's my understanding, and I could be wrong, tell me if, did Ryan Costin agree to,
Brian Costin's part is only like $500.
well, I know, but the footage, the linear footage, we have more than they
I
do.
still think, I want to verify, but I still think you need the
Okay, but
money.
if they did have
Yeah.
the 50%
Yeah.
up to the winter road,
then we
Then we
don't
would
need to
do
have
that.
this meeting.
Well, you don't-
budgeted the funds for 50%, they get there, no.
But you only pay that portion of the road, so is that, I mean,
Right, well, that's what I just
Um,
asked him, would that be sufficient for them?
New dollar amount, Robert?
Robert?
Man, I don't know, but I think you're going to open another can of worms because the cost is going to change. The project's based on doing that whole stretch from North Pinnacle to where the pavement is now as you go up Oz.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a per foot basis.
And yeah, the footage just cost is going to change.
gonna go up because
It's
it's
going to go up because of mobilization to get them up there, they're not doing as much.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to be charged.
Yeah, the capital
Price will change.
input's still gonna be the
So
same.
just think about that while you're thinking on.
We didn't say we wouldn't pay 51% of an increased cost.
I mean, I'm just saying something y'all need to think, you know, put into the
Well,
budget.
so you would pay 51% of the cost, whatever it is.
Yes, sir.
Right, doesn't, if the cost goes up, if it's a shorter amount,
We pay more.
right. But you would have your 50% so that
Well,
we could stay within our
But
policy
there's-
and you could get that paid.
Right, there's still, but if you still need 51% of the owners, but I believe the linear footage, if Mr. Costin is included.
But you think he
is-
might not because he's thinking he's getting the whole thing done?
No, I think he will. Okay, there's two questions here, because Ford and I were discussing that too. You know, if the council was to say, okay, we won't go ahead and pay this whole stretch or half a stretch, whatever it is, based on the dollar amount we have now, we could make a contingent that those folks send their money in ahead of time, because there is nothing that says, oh, we pledged, we signed, we don't want to pay now.
Yeah.
Because nobody else has paid.
All right.
So that's one thing. Another thing is, as I've already informed council, council voted several times to maintain policy. I believe from a staff standpoint, before we try to jump all this up, we're to the point now, we need to just resurface roads this year. We're right here at the end of June.
Yeah.
If we want to continue this discussion, you know, we're working on a pavement study that's going to be ready in October and November. Council will have another retreat in January. If they want to look at entertaining, you know, a list of roads, just like we have water pipes now that need to be replaced at no additional charge. I don't know, I think, this 11th hour is just a big push. And like I said, even talking about the roads now, we have to get a new assessment or a new cost for part of that road they want to pave. We'd have to send out letters again. None of that's going to happen. Get ready for this paving.
To
I
do
mean,
it this
even if
year.
we said
That's
go
correct.
ahead and do it, made the exception,
If you make an exception, then we could,
but when would it get done?
oh, probably
That's fine with
July.
us. Next year's fine.
Please, sir.
Well, I mean, if you said we're gonna pay it regardless, we could get scheduled, because I talked to Robert, we need it by the end of June to make a decision. But then you have the other things we talked about as far as, you know, Hawthorne, et cetera. So we're not, staff is not prepared to make a recommendation to council to do this. This would be a council decision.
Well, how about if we make the study for in October, November, and put that on the agenda, or put that as a priority road?
Well,
When we do the study, we can look at it.
you can look at it, that's what the engineer, I won't,
And then, I mean, they're willing to wait a year anyway, and then we can look at it next year and decide if we want to just go ahead and do it.
Right, and again, if we can find a way to do it, because to me, it's not the money at this point, it's changing existing policy.
Agree.
Agreed.
And I also say, when we do go to pave it, I want it to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday work, and there to be hour-long delays. You know, if we can't regulate them, you know, I can be a petty person. I mean, let's, you know, you want to get a little revenge on it, make them sit in that bus for 40 minutes as we've got the road work going on, back and forth.
one thing about if the policy, let's see, the proposed pavings in October, council discusses it, then there's discussions too on, okay, we've got a list of 30 roads, year 1, year 2, year 3, budget out, this is how we're gonna take care of it. You know, you also need a policy at that time, okay, let's say you're number 9 on the list, you wanna move up to number 1, then you would have to pay something. That's one thing, there's a lot of balls up in the air right now that we're just not capable of answering. We're not able to answer right now.
Well, we had looked at some of the roads already.
I think we've all submitted a list of what we consider to be
Right,
priority
and
roads.
Barry and I sat with Robert and Tim.
We came up with a plan and what roads we thought could be up on the list rather than farther down on the list.
And this is a unique situation, and we're dealing with something.
Yeah.
So if there is a way that it comes to alter the policy without, you know, my problem is I don't know how you do that. You don't put the genie back in the bottle if we make an exception
I like the
here.
idea of going up to the winter road, and then if it's the 50%, and at least
I mean,
get part of
if we
that.
can get a way to get this out, I don't like the idea, if we're gonna do the project,
Just
do
do
the
the whole thing.
project. I mean, but again, we're dealing with two group, you know, I think the homeowners and the property owners there, we're in the middle now of their disagreement, you know, and again, we're not operating that, we're not, you know, if we could shut the road down to people, believe me, that would be my vote.
What I'm hearing is we want to do it, we just have to
We want
understand
to
the
state the
decision.
policy and
Right.
understand that we're
How
not,
we're going to do it.
yeah, because, I mean, I know three groups that are gonna come immediately and say,
Do mine too.
Hawthorne is going to be first on the list.
Hawthorne, Dogwood, the lake.
And Greenbrier.
Yeah.
Well, Greenbrier is
Well,
gonna
Greenbrier
get
we're
done.
gonna do as part of
That's
water
gonna
and
get
sewer,
done
yeah.
because of the water and sewer, but
But,
still.
I mean, it's not the only group of property owning taxpayers that are up against this 50% requirement that has existed. You know,
Right.
there are others. And again, if taking the whole of it, the exceptional circumstances, if we can find a way to do it, I mean, I hate to say I'm not concerned about the money, but we're not talking about a tremendous
It's not
amount of
about-
money at
no,
this
it's
point.
not about the money, it's about the
It's
policy.
opening up
Right.
the precedent.
And four, I mean, you've been doing this a long time for different communities or the county. Once a precedent is set, do we get in trouble?
In this case, it's essentially a legislative decision for you. Actions by this council can't bind future councils. So as far as from a legal standpoint, a precedent of what you do or do not do doesn't have a legal consequence. However, you will have, for lack of a better term, the political consideration of folks will ask, well, why are you doing this and not mine? From a political or a consistency standpoint. So it's not necessarily a legal matter, but it's more of a policy decision.
So if a traffic study is done, since they're buses, versus cars, do the buses, does that increase the percentage of a traffic count? Is there any difference between a bus and a car?
They're doing
When it comes
a
to-
road assessment study, not a traffic count study. So they're just looking at the conditions of roads. They're assuming fire trucks, garbage trucks, general traffic. So
I mean, we get.
they're not
dump trucks.
differentiating the number of buses going up to Oz.
And we also get, the work trucks, the dump trucks that go up and down this mountain,
Yeah.
probably weigh a lot more than the buses themselves when they're full. So, they're all over our roads and such, so they do damage to those also. But the consistency of the buses going back and forth is, damaging. I've seen that road after a rain, and it's horrific.
And we do get a lot of complaints about dust in other places on roads. I constantly get complaints about,
You always
what can we
get
do about the dust on
complaints.
my gravel road,
Well,
just from regular traffic? There's another gentleman.
45 years.
There's another gentleman.
Roads are dusty.
Earlier this year, and I went through the policy, it's not as big a section as Oz, but same thing, you get 50% of the property owners. He said, well, I'll go talk to my neighbors and see if they're, and that never.
Dusty
materialized.
roads, I just set that aside. Anybody who lives on a dusty road, if you bought on a dusty road and you didn't do your due diligence,
You're gonna get dusty.
I'll go down and wash my car, and by the time I drive, 2.5 miles to my house, it looks like I went through a sandstorm. So dusty roads means nothing to me.
How about safety?
Safety.
With the buses, sliding on the gravel, my
Car,
dog and
I
were-
understand that, but they could be going 15 miles an hour and they're still gonna slide on the buses just because of the weight of the vehicle itself. Again, we can monitor that. I know the police have monitored them going up the mountain and such, have driven behind them to make sure, not in marked cars or whatever, but we can monitor that. That's something we do have control over, and Tim will speak to the police chief and see what we could do about that. But as far as, the dust, that came up a couple of times and whatnot. But we really, we're kind of like at a spot here where we want to do it, but we're not sure we want to make the exception and maybe wait till October.
And Go ahead.
When you wait till October, I still think you're between October and January before you're able to make a good decision. The
Right.
study's just gonna be presented in October, and there's a lot of other things you have to consider about, who comes up on the list. Let me give you an example. You will look at what's being spent on resurfacing now. We get $112,000 a year from POW bill. That's the support from the state. So if we're doing, let's say, $200,000 a year, there's another, 88,000 we're coming up with from general fund, which is about a penny and a half the tax rate. You know how the water study now has, all this that has to be done, and this is how we're gonna fund it? Then we'd have to come up with a funding plan if we're not gonna do assessments to match that paving as well. So there's a lot of, like I said, I just don't want these people to expect you to give an answer in October. I don't think the answer is gonna come till January, February, or March. Discussion starting in October.
Here's another question. I know we have a generic speed limit on Beech Mountain. But we could post other roads at a lower speed limit.
We already
Yes,
have.
that's correct.
Yeah, and that would allow the police to enforce it to a greater extent.
That means for everybody and not just for
Yes,
progressives.
exactly. I hope
Let's
that's
make that
understood.
very
Speed
clear.
limits for everybody.
If we put
which is right.
a 5 or a 10 or 15 mile an hour speed limit, that means that goes for cars too. So you got to understand what that would mean.
Now,
that
that
we
is something
can do
council can
now.
entertain, and we could do that fairly quickly.
That can be done fairly
I
quickly.
think that should be added to the, unless we hear that, no, I don't want to drive 15 miles an hour. And, that would help all of that. Like I said, I already hope we're doing clubhouse at the July meeting.
Right.
Let's add that section of road, make it 15.
I think
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
I think that's a good idea.
Tim?
We can do that.
Okay.
And we hadn't advertised, well, it's a police action, so we could do it. That's
Yes.
Okay. Good
And
idea.
also parking. Parking on private property.
That is a police thing.
But again,
Well,
you have to post it, I
Well,
believe.
you can put no parking, can't you?
You only have to post private property if local ordinance requires it. Otherwise, someone parking on private property is considered a trespass. And it's subject to being towed unless you have more restrictive
And that would be
regulations to the
for the
contrary.
private property owner to contact the police, somebody's
Yeah.
parking on my
Yeah.
property,
Absolutely.
blocking my driveway.
That's what the
et cetera,
people,
et
the
cetera.
complaints that we've received in the past, that
Have been
was,
told to do.
been told, just, you need to call the police, they'll come up and, do what they need.
And they'll come up now, if the people on the park for 15 or 20 minutes and they get a call, by the time they get
By
there,
the time the
they
car's
might be
gone,
gone.
there's
but-
nothing they
But
can
you still need to call the police because, they could
You
be,
don't know how long they're
you
gonna
you don't
be
know
there.
how long they're gonna be there.
There's a few cars that park at the top of Beech in that circle. There's not that many.
I think when 5506, with the, like you're talking about the lifts and that created a problem and such. But now that that's taken care of, they are pretty strict about parking cars. I drove up there
When
and
cars,
a guy came up and says, you can't park here. I'm like, I'm not parking here, I'm just turning around. So, I mean, they were pretty strict with me. I'm assuming that they would be that way for anybody because they know what the repercussions are going to be.
that's correct. That
They also put signs up along that road going under the bridge, there's no parking.
Right. So what have we come up with? Nothing.
Well, I think we have some actions for the next council meeting.
Right.
Speed limit.
I think pretty much we have a consensus on that, I think.
I still would like you to look into the 50% to the winter road, if you can just see if that.
You wanna get a price on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can get a
That
price.
puts a lot on you pretty quick.
We can get a price,
No.
but I can tell you, there's no way we can get the turnaround with letters because we have to send all the
Oh,
letters
no,
out
no, no,
again.
no,
that's fine.
Okay,
I'm
but
not
you
saying-
just want a price.
I'm not
Price.
saying find out and let's start next week. I'm not,
Okay.
I'm just saying that was kind of an out of the box thinking and I
Okay.
thought that was a good idea. So let's see where we are with that. If it does have the 50% and, we can decide if that's something we want to do or we wait till the plan in October and then see if it's going to be done next year. But I think that's a good step, at least to maybe get some of it done. And then it wouldn't affect the ladies. Benefit them.
May I ask you to clarify the traffic study, the results of the traffic?
There's no,
I'm done, just clarify.
there's no traffic study, we're not doing.
It's a pavement.
It's a pavement.
Okay, assessment, a pavement and road assessment of the
Assessment, right.
66 miles of road we have. They've been out for about a month now, last month, and taking measurements and that kind of thing. So it's a road status assessment.
Right, it's not a traffic study.
But as far as the implications for the adjacent property owners. In other words, if you identify a road that you feel needs to be paved, is the cost still the same, a share basis, or is it the town has identified it, therefore the town is going to pay for it?
All of the above. I'm not trying to be sarcastic or flippant here, but the thing about it is, we'll have the road conditions. We'll say, and the engineers will say, this is the road's in worse shape, this is the worst paved road, this is worst gravel road. Then we'll come back. That's why I said the October thing. Then we have to start coming back. Okay, well, what kind of policy are we going to have? Are we going to say now that we only require, is staff going to recommend, well, to get this policy, you need to have a 5-cent tax increase? Don't shoot me. I'm not saying that. I'm just throwing that out as an example. Okay, how do you fund this plan? What taxes do you put in this plan? Okay, do you not require anybody to pay? Okay, if you're on the list and it says in 2022 we're supposed to pave your road and we've got funds to pay it, okay, you're good. Your taxes take care of it. You're number 9 on the list. You won't be moved up to number 2 next year. Okay, well, do you have 100% of your people say they'll pay 85%? Submit the checks in, and then we'll bump your road ahead of everyone else's. I know it sounds like I'm talking in circles and government speak. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of balls in the air here, and we need to look at it. But staff probably would have no problem in recommending a 0 participation at some point. Will council accept that? The last time we paved the street was over 17 years ago. There was one rumor, and I can't substantiate it, that there was actually one street that people had 100% participation. It was a little short street, and the prior council didn't pave it because they want to wait till the water and sewer work's done. That gets in a whole nother. Sometimes if water and sewer work's not going to happen for 10 or 12 years, there's no reason not to go ahead and pave a road, because by the time you pave it, it's up for re-maintenance again. So there's lots of issues. Staff will come up with a recommendation. Engineers are only going to tell us the status of the roads. They're going to look for staff and council to come up with a policy of how to do it. Now, they may suggest a cost, how much it's going to cost annually. Let's say, it's going to cost us $325,000 annually to get all these roads paved in 20 years. They're supposed to be paved. Like I said, I'm throwing out numbers now. And then you have to fund how you fund that. So that's kind of where we're at. So discussions start in October. I don't really expect to have any kind of clear answer this election year. I don't expect to get any clear direction until after the first of the year, when we have our council retreat in January.
And how long are the commitments good? I'm sorry, I know we're not
That's all
supposed to
right, go
interact, but how long are those commitments that got signed and notarized? Are those good as long as those owners are present, or?
No, basically.
We have to go through the process all over.
We'd have to go through. I'd say we have to go through the process all over again. I guess miraculously, if within the 12 months from the time we started, if we have 50% people participate, we could still take those figures, the signatures in perpetuity, but you didn't sign an easement, you didn't sign an agreement for 12 months or in perpetuity. So if this sets for a year or two and nothing happens, we'll have to start all over again.
But if something is recommended like next January, those people who committed would still be good?
I don't know. Ford, what do you think?
Let me look into that.
He's got to look into that.
I'm sorry, I just.
No, it's a good question. We need to be, it's a good
That's a
question.
very good question, and I'll look into that.
Thank you.
It would be, once you go past 12 months, I'll just say from a practical standpoint, you probably have to start over again, but I'd rather have a legal aspect of that because it's hard to hold people. Prices change. This bid's only really good for 69 this year anyway, so then you'd have to get a new bid for that as well.
Tim, what does this study have to do if we do indeed go from the winter road?
It's two separate things.
Two separate.
The winter road's not ours, so it's not part of our assessment.
I'm not talking
No, you're talking about going up to the winter road.
up to the winter road.
That's completely separate. The study is a town study of all the roads. That if we didn't do up to the winter road, it would be included in that. What I have asked him is to find out about if we do have 50% of the people that would agree to do up to the winter road, then the council might, and we would discuss that at the next meeting, to go ahead and pave that section because we did get the 50%.
Which has nothing to do.
Has nothing to do with that. What we're trying to do is we're taking Susan's idea and going, hey, that might work, let's see if it does, to at least get that portion done. So what I'm hearing basically from everything that the council said is we're not really going to do the exception and just go ahead and do it. More so because of what's going to happen with other taxpayers when they find out that happened. We've asked him to check out the 50% up to the winter road, and then we can maybe we'll get to that in July just to find out how, what it is, if it's feasible or not. We understand that we are going to have a larger project that's going to starting to be presented in October, and will have to be discussed in budget retreats next year to whichever council is sitting here at that time. And then we could, if the winter road doesn't work out, then the road would be discussed in that overall project.
Just to throw a little curve in this whole thing,
Don't do that. Yes.
most surveys and most of the taxpayers of Beech Mountain want the back road paved before any other road. You know the back road?
Yes.
And every discussion that we've had with citizens of Beech Mountain, that's #1 priority. And so, that just throw a little curve in there, but that road will be #1. And that project is somewhere at around $2 million.
$2.7 million.
$2.7
By
million.
the time we get to it, it'll be $5 million.
So, just so, again, that's taking taxpayers' opinions. And it's not just like your road, it's the whole town. And
But that's important information for
Just-
us to try to tell our owners
correct.
that if they want to participate.
Correct.
Which, it's my understanding, we have 100% of our owners on one side of the road.
Just
not
that
on the
other side is the problem.
Yeah.
So
In
just
more
so,
ways than one.
just so you're aware, that's, everybody talks, every
Right.
meeting we get, that's the first conversation that comes up, is the back road.
And just be aware that rumors will go around, and don't believe everything you hear. Just, it happens with the town. When we got the Christmas ball, people came in here and said, we heard you were buying 7 more Christmas balls. What? So the 7-month thing on the Oz, sometimes people start rumors just to stir you up. So and that would stir you up, and I don't blame you for that. That would stir everybody up. And so, all right, so we're clear on where we're at. Anybody have any other questions? I want to make sure everybody's clear about where we're at. David?
What's the next step here?
Tim's going to check out if we have the 50% up to the winter road, and if we do, then the council will discuss it at the next meeting, a few weeks away, and decide if we'll go ahead and stay within our policy of the 50%, and then we'll work on getting that road paved. If you're not in the 50% at that time, then the road will get put back into the overall plan of Beech Mountain and the paving, and then it will be discussed through the budget meetings of next year.
And I think it's also important that if it is found that the 50% is met and we're okay, that would not be paving this year.
That's correct, yes.
It would be paving next year.
Correct, yes.
Okay?
That-
If that
Yeah.
threshold is met.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. Anybody else have anything to say on the council?
And we intend to lower the speed limit on that road at the
Yeah,
next
that'll
meeting.
come up in July when
mean,
we're doing the speed limits, absolutely.
And so much as we can, enhanced enforcement, additional enforcement, prioritize, however
Yes.
we do that without putting ourselves in
Targeting.
that we're targeting them, but
And Tim will talk
if
to
the
the chief.
concerns are safety,
Sure.
hence the need for additional enforcement or patrol.
Right, absolutely. Okay?
Good.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Wendell moved, Wagner second. All in favor? Get the heck out of here.
How you doing, Chief?
I told him that if you go up pretty good side of the road,
What's the number